Welcome back to Grimverse History, where we uncover the strange and forgotten sides of history. Tonight, we are stepping beyond the familiar image of Vikings as fearless explorers and legendary warriors. We will follow the fate of those whose stories were deliberately erased, enemy princesses taken alive. Vikings are remembered as warriors of honor, but when they captured enemy princesses, honor ended. These women were not killed. They were kept alive because living was the punishment. Captured princesses were used as weapons to humiliate kings, to erase bloodlines, to send a message no army could ignore, so brutal that medieval monks, men who documented executions and crusades, chose not to write it down. And yet, it happened again and again. You are standing outside a timber hall, its door swollen from years of cold rain. Snow presses under your boots. Somewhere inside, chains shift. A fire crackles. Now, you push the door open. You step into the Viking longhouse where enemy princesses were kept alive. Take a deep breath. Let the noise of your day fade away. You're safe here. If you enjoy drifting into history through quiet, unsettling truths, take a moment to like this video and subscribe to Grimverse History. Wherever you're listening from tonight, you're part of this journey. Now, dim the lights. Let the hum around you slow your thoughts. Relax your shoulders. Follow the voice, not the fear. It is the 9th century. The raid is over. The palace burns behind you. And somewhere in the snow, a crown lies trampled, no longer a symbol of power, but a reminder of what the Vikings believed was far more valuable than death. You don't meet the Vikings at sea. You meet them after the fire is already dying. A princess is being pulled across frozen ground. Her hands are bound. Her crown is gone, not stolen, discarded. This is where the myth begins to crack. History teaches Vikings as brutal, yes, but clean in their brutality. Axes, battles, quick endings. But standing here, you notice something colder. They didn't kill her. They chose not to. You hear the soft scrape of boots behind you. Someone laughs. Not loudly, comfortably. For a captured princess, death would have been efficient. Death would have been honorable. Death would have allowed songs to be written. Survival did none of that. Living meant becoming a message, a movable ruin, proof that bloodlines could be bent without spilling blood at all. You feel the night stretch. No rush. There is time. This is the part history trims away. Not because it's uncertain, but because it's inconvenient. Medieval scribes loved violence when it made sense. They wrote down executions. They detailed massacres. But this had no hero, so the pages went quiet, and textbooks later learned to stay polite. You stand there, listening to the fire pop once more. No speeches, no glory, just a simple calculation being made in the dark. Sometimes the cruelest act is not killing someone. It's deciding they're more useful alive. Morning does not arrive with light. It arrives with decisions. You notice the change in the room. Voices lower. Eyes linger longer than necessary. This was never a random capture. The Vikings were precise. They asked quiet questions long before the raid began. Names were memorized, family lines traced, messengers intercepted. A princess was not an accident of war. She was the objective. You lean against the longhouse wall. The timber is rough, still warm from last night's fire. Inside, men speak in measured tones, like merchants discussing cargo. Her value is calculated without cruelty. Alive, she opens doors. Visible, she humiliates. Moved across borders, she unsettles entire courts. This is not rage. It is administration. You feel the weight of it settle in your chest. No one asks about her voice or her fears. Origin is the only thing that matters now. A captured princess reaches further than any sword. Kings can lose battles and recover. They rarely recover from public degradation. Somewhere far away, a letter will arrive. Wax cracked, hands trembling. She breathes. That is the threat. You understand why no horns are blown, why no victory songs are sung. This work requires silence. Dry humor creeps in where it shouldn't. For people who loved chaos, they preferred order. The ground beneath your feet feels colder. The war, it seems, has already shifted shape. What follows is not conquest. It is leverage. You expect chains. You don't expect paperwork. The first thing taken is not her freedom. It's her identity. You watch it happen quietly. No ceremony. No violence worth recording. A man speaks a name she doesn't recognize. Another marks it into wood with a blade dulled by use. The old name is never said again. This is how the thrall crown begins. Not with iron on the head, with absence. She is no longer introduced. She is counted. You stand close enough to smell damp wool and old smoke. The air feels administrative, like a place where mistakes are corrected, not mourned. Royal blood does not disappear here. It is repurposed. High-status captives receive cleaner clothes, better food, more attention. That attention has a reason. You notice how eyes follow her movement, not with desire, with evaluation. This is not slavery as punishment. It is slavery as display. Her name becomes a number. Her lineage becomes a feature. Her survival becomes a selling point. Auctions are held in daylight, public enough to be remembered, casual enough to feel routine. You hear prices discussed without emotion. Livestock comparisons slip in by accident. No one corrects them. There is something almost polite about it. Monks later struggle with this part. They prefer cruelty with blood. This version leaves fewer stains. Archaeology confirms what the texts avoid. Foreign royal remains. Isotope signatures that don't belong. Burials that are too careful for servants. You kneel beside the dirt in your imagination. Cold seeps into your knees. This was not humiliation meant to end quickly. It was degradation designed to stretch. The crown is gone, yes, but the idea of her status is kept alive, just long enough to be used against her. Dry humor finds its way in again. They called it order. You straighten slowly. The fire behind you crackles once, then settles. Erasing someone completely takes effort. Keeping them partially visible takes skill. And the Vikings were very good at that. The next step feels almost civilized. That is what makes it dangerous. You smell clean water for the first time. Hair is washed. Clothes are changed. This is not mercy. It is preparation. You hear the word peace used carefully, as if it might break. The Vikings understood something most empires learn early. Violence ends wars. Marriage extends them. A captured princess could be bound without chains. All it took was ceremony. You stand at the edge of the hall as vows are spoken, not loudly, not romantically. No one asks if she agrees. Agreement is implied by survival. The marriage does not anchor her to one man. It moves her, from chieftain to chieftain, from alliance to alliance. Children follow, not heirs, bridges. Bloodlines become tangled on purpose. A son here, a daughter somewhere else. You realize the strategy is long, uncomfortably long. Killing a dynasty invites revenge. Blending it creates confusion. You notice how carefully records are kept. Births noted, names adjusted, origins blurred. This is how borders soften without armies crossing them. Letters survive from people who tried to stop this. Church officials, men with ink-stained fingers and strong opinions. They complain quietly. They warn loudly. Nothing changes. You imagine the woman at the center of it all, moved like a seal on wax, pressed into different futures until none feel real. There is no single home left to return to. Only directions. Dry humor slips in where it shouldn't. Everyone calls it diplomacy. You feel the weight of time here. Years pass without ceremony, only repetition. This system does not break bodies quickly. It dissolves identity slowly. Children grow up unsure which side they belong to. That is the point. Later historians struggle with this part. Marriage sounds harmless on parchment, especially compared to axes. But archaeology is less polite. DNA tells stories, texts avoid. Lineages appear where they shouldn't exist. You stand very still. The room feels warmer now, not comforting, stale. This was peace built on exhaustion, on the quiet surrender of continuity. You understand why some women chose death earlier. It was shorter. The ceremony ends without applause. Life continues, and somewhere, a war quietly forgets how it started. This is where the temperature drops. Not outside, inside your chest. You are guided beyond the longhouse, past the firelight, to a place chosen for clarity. Distance matters. Visibility matters more. This is not an execution meant to frighten the crowd. It is arranged for a single pair of eyes. Someone familiar is brought forward. A shape your body recognizes before your mind does. A voice you have heard in safer rooms. No charges are announced. No justice is performed. Instead, instructions are given. Quiet ones, precise ones. You are not asked to kill. You are asked to assist. A grip tightened. A nod acknowledged. Presence confirmed. Later scholars will name this the blood witness. The logic is simple and merciless. Once you take part, return becomes impossible. You feel the ground through thin soles, frozen, unforgiving. This is not about ending a life. It is about ending belonging. Participation stains deeper than blood. It rewrites loyalty. Archaeology uncovers hints, centuries later. Bodies arranged with care that feels intentional. Marks suggesting more than one role in the moment of death. Written sources hesitate here. They choose vaguer language. Tradition, custom, necessary acts. Everything resumes quickly afterward. The body is removed. Snow is brushed smooth. Someone offers water, as if dehydration were the concern. Dry humor slips in again, unwanted but accurate. Even rituals of psychological destruction run on schedules. You remain standing longer than needed. No one urges you to move. That pause is deliberate. When it ends, you are still breathing. But home no longer exists as a direction. The wind rises. Footprints disappear faster than expected. This is why chroniclers avoided detail. There is no moral framing that survives contact with this scene. Only a silence that does exactly what it was designed to do. By now, you expect silence. Instead, history clears its throat. Her name is Olga of Kiev, and she survives long. Enough to understand the rules. You can feel the shift immediately. The air sharpens. This story does not move like the others. Olga watches. She remembers. She does not rush. Her husband is killed by Vikings. The message is familiar. Submission is expected. Envoys arrive with smiles practiced in advance. They speak of marriage, of peace, of a woman's proper place in recovery. You already know what usually happens next. This time, it doesn't. Olga listens carefully. Then she responds in the same language the system taught her. One delegation disappears into a trench. Another burns inside a bathhouse. A city answers an invitation and never leaves alive. There is no screaming heroism here, only precision. You notice something unsettling. She does not invent new violence. She mirrors it. Each act follows a rule the Vikings themselves trusted. Hospitality, ritual, expectation. That is why it works. Later, She converts to Christianity. History grows uncomfortable again. A woman who commits calculated annihilation is easier to sanctify than to explain. She is declared a saint, not because she was gentle, but because she was effective. The aftermath matters. Raids slow. Strategies change. Captured noblewomen become liabilities instead of leverage. The system does not vanish overnight. It hesitates. That is enough. You stand at the edge of this moment, aware of the irony. One woman survives long enough to turn psychological warfare into deterrence. Dry humor finds its closing line. Empires respect morality later. They respect consequences immediately. The fire in the distance finally goes out, not because it was wrong, because it became expensive. The fire has gone quiet, not out, just resting. Snow settles where footprints once argued with the ground. Somewhere far back in time, wood still creaks. Iron cools. Breath slows in the cold. These stories were never meant to travel forward. They stayed where smoke lingered, where names dissolved into silence. If this journey felt worth carrying with you, you're welcome to leave a quiet like, or share it with someone who listens late. You can subscribe to Grimverse History and return whenever the night feels long. No rush. These stories wait patiently. For now, let your thoughts settle. Let the past stay where it belongs, and let sleep do what it does best. Goodbye, and we will meet again.